Fear the Walking Dead rewrite. Season 4, Episode 14, Nothing Else to Lose. This episode would begin and you would see Alicia and she is chopping through the first part of the roadblock, and then you see her and Morgan and they are inside now and they're taking out some of the dead and they are taking a bunch of them out. Some of them look a little bit more burned and funky than some of the others, and Alicia definitely picks up on that, and that is one thing that she kind of notices, but she doesn't really say anything. And then Morgan says that they would cover more ground if they split up, so that is what Morgan and Alicia are going to do. Alicia is going to go down one way, Morgan's going to go down another way. They're going to cover the most ground that they possibly can within a day, and they're going to radio back to each other, report back to each other, and tell them what they find now that they're on the other side of this border. So that is exactly what they're going to do. Now, Morgan goes one way, Alicia goes the other way, and we follow both perspectives. Now, Alicia is continuing to kill some of the dead one after another, and then we also see Morgan, who has made it onto one of the main roads now, and he is continuing to walk. And then Grace radios Morgan, and we're all just kind of like, oh, Grace, so like she's back. And basically then we get to see Grace, and she says to Morgan that we're not going to have that much time left and that we are going to have to deal with this because pretty soon this power plant is going to melt down. And Morgan is kind of like, I'm going to warn the others. And then Morgan radios in John, June, and the others, and he basically says, like, look, that power plant's going to melt down. Are you guys back yet? And John says, nah, we're still at the mall, but we should be back really soon. And Morgan would say, get back as soon as you can because we don't have that much time left. We're going to have to head back for home very soon, and as soon as we possibly can. Once we find out what's on the other side of this border, we are heading back home. And then Grace would interrupt on the radio, and she would say, wait, you're on the other side of the border? And Morgan would say, yeah, but it's fine. Like, there's no dead near me right now. I'm safe. And she would say, Morgan, don't get yourself killed over this. And Morgan would say, look, there's bad people. They have some of my people either captive or killed. Hell, I don't even know if they're alive or dead. I had no choice. I had to check. And Grace would say, I just hope that you're making the right decision here because there are a bunch of radiated walkers everywhere nearby you. Just be super, super careful. And make sure that if you come across one of them, to stay as far away as you possibly can from them. And then she says, there's a few houses nearby where some of the employees lived. You can take something from there just to protect yourself. And Morgan would say, thanks. And Grace would say one more time, be careful and be safe. Then you also see Alicia, and Alicia is still cutting through some of the dead, and she notices one of them that looks very different. And when we notice this, we kind of pick up on the fact, oh no, is that a radiated walker? And that is why Alicia is looking at this thing in such a weird way, and we're still not really sure, but that is the idea that we get, is that this must be a radiated walker, and that is what Grace was warning Morgan about just a few minutes ago. And then we continue to see Alicia chop through some of the dead one after another. We can see her killing the dead, and then we cut to the intro. Now, after the intro, we would cut back to the mall, and we would see John and June and Dwight and Amelia, and they're all packing the back of this vehicle with a bunch of supplies that they're taking from the mall before they head back. And we have John and June that go back into the mall and grab the rest of the remaining supplies, and we've got Amelia and Dwight that talk real quick as they're still loading stuff in the back of the truck. And Amelia would say, look, if you don't mind me asking, how long was it since you've seen your wife? And Dwight would say, almost a year. And she would say, oh, wow, I'm sorry. And he would say, no, look, don't worry about it. I'm sorry about Dean. And she would just kind of take a deep breath and she'd say, yeah, I want to know if he's alive. And Dwight would say, well, I know Sherry is. And that's all I've done is believe that she's alive and believe that everything's okay with Sherry. And that's what I'm going to do for you. And I want you to believe that Dean is alive, because he is. And Amelia would say, thanks. Hopefully both of us will get to have a happy ending. And Dwight would say, it would be nice, wouldn't it? And he would walk back into the mall and grab the rest of the supplies and help John and June. Now, as they're starting to finish putting the supplies in the back of this car, then all of a sudden, John turns around and he notices a massive herd of the dead heading towards the mall, and they have no choice but to barricade themselves inside of the mall. They have no choice but to head back into the mall because the group of zombies are way too big. But as they start locking the door and as they have to barricade themselves back inside of this mall, the darn vehicle is still trapped out there with all of the supplies. Then we see the zombie herd that starts coming up to the windows and coming up to the doors. They have to barricade it all shut, and they have to make sure that the dead don't come into the mall. But now all 4 of them are now back and trapped inside of the mall because there's a huge dead now starting to surround the mall. As we see some of the dead are outside the mall, we focus on a few of them and we notice on their necks those same things that Grace was warning them about, meaning that this group of zombies that is surrounding the mall is also, some of them inside this herd are some radiated walkers. Then we see Amelia in a panicked voice saying, "What the hell do we do?" And John would say, "It's all right. The worst thing we have to do is just wait for them to bypass. It shouldn't take that long." And June would look at John and she would say, "John, we don't have that much time. We don't have time to just ride it out and wait for them to just hopefully go away." And John would say, "No, you're right, Junebug. We don't. Let me just think of something here." And we would notice John, June, Dwight, and Amelia all look a little freaked out, but they're also just trying to figure out a way that they're going to be able to escape this mall. So then we see the nighttime sky, and we can tell that this obviously is a little bit later, and we get to see the Proctors. Now, the Proctors are set up in this little campsite. You've got a few RVs, you've got a few tents, and you've got a few motorcycles just parked for the night, and you've got some of them sitting around a campfire. Now, some of them are sitting around a campfire making jokes, saying some really just weird stuff, and they all sound like they're just very like rough dudes. They're very just kind of out there, even just in what they're kind of saying to each other. And basically Strand would show up and he would start, he would sit down and he would sit next to the Proctors nearby the fire. And then you would have Asher that is sitting right next to Strand around the fire. And Asher would say, "Welcome to the Proctors, Victor." And Victor would say, "Ah, thank you. Glad to be on board." And Asher would say, "This must be all new for you. I mean, the way we go, what we do, I'm sure you're not used to this kind of thing, right?" And Strand would say, I love changes, a new scenery. I love trying something new. You people are something different, I will say that. But I love it." And he would cheers to Asher, and they would both cheers and they would both drink. And then Asher would say, "It must be hard doing something like this when you know eventually you're just going to screw everybody over." And Strand would just kind of take a pause, and he would look at Asher and he would say, "What is that supposed to mean?" And Asher would say, "Do you really think I'm not fucking stupid? I see right through your shit." And then he would whisper to Strand so no one else hears it. He would say, "I see right through your shit. I know what you're doing. Gaining Proctor John's trust, making him believe you, making him fall for your bullshit a second time. And when the time is right, you're going to help Morgan and the others win this thing. And then you'll be looked at as the big hero. I'm not blind. I know what you're doing." And Strand would say, "Well, you obviously misjudge me. Very poorly, I'm afraid." And Asher would say, "So how do I know that that's not true? How do I know that you're not going to hurt any of us? How do I know that you're not going to try to kill us when need be?" And Strand would just take another sip and he would say, "I guess you don't." And Asher would just look really pissed off and he would walk away and walk inside of his RV. Strand would see Asher walk away and he would just take another sip of his drink. Now we would cut to the next day and we would get to see the campsite. It is obviously the next day now, and we get to see Proctor John, Strand, Asher, and a few of the other men, and they're all kind of surrounded and they're having a meeting. And Proctor John would say, "I called this meeting today so you all could hear what my plan is for the group of pacifists that we're about to face, gentlemen." And Strand would look at him with a confident look on his face, and all cocky, he would say, "Wouldn't miss it." And Proctor John would smile, and then he would look at his proctors and he would say, "Tomorrow's the big day, gentlemen, and my plan remains this. The pacifists have not learned. They've not learned the importance of life and what it's really like. Mr. Jones doesn't want to comply. Victor has tried. It has failed. Asher has tried. It has also failed. We have tried. It has failed. On and on and on. You know the rest." And that leads me to my very point. There's only one word for this. Only one word that means what we are going to do tomorrow. And all the men would look at Proctor John, and Proctor John would say, "Elimination." And Asher would say, "We're just going to kill all of them? All right, I like that." And Proctor John would say, "Look, we tried to talk to them. We tried to do everything we could. I am giving you people a direct order. We find them, you open fire. Instantly. Do not take any prisoners alive. Do not take anyone alive. But Alicia, I'm getting her back. She was my assistant before and she was damn good at that. Even after all this time, I still feel like something is missing in this group. And that is her. And he would look at Strand and he would say, that's where you will come in, Victor. And Victor says, I don't understand. And he would say, you're gonna get Alicia for me, while I take care of the pacifists. The pacifists will fall. We will kill every single soul. And then Asher would say, what about the prisoners? And he would say, take them there. We'll kill them in front of Morgan and the others first. We'll make Morgan and the others cry when they see their friends brutally die in front of them. Then once Morgan and the others are broken and they see Luciana and Dean are dead, we'll let them sit on that for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll take out the rest of them. Strand, you grab Alicia. And then we continue on our journey. And Victor would say, to where? To better places, Victor. That's where. And then he would continue to say, I don't really like people all that much. And with all these pacifists and idiotic decisions, and we help people and take what you need and leave what you goddamn don't, I feel like I'm losing my mind. So if I'm gonna keep my sanity, if I'm gonna be a good leader to you people, that is the plan that we will go with tomorrow. We kill all of them, we take their supplies, we use it to our benefit, and we head into a new future. Once we eliminate, of course. And Strand would say, and what is that new future, Proctor? And Proctor would say, well, if you listen to my plan, and if you're actually willing to fight alongside of us like you claim you are, Victor, you'll get to see what I have planned for after this. If not, and you weasel out, I won't give a shit. And Asher would say, you got my vote. And then all the Proctors would say, yeah, we're in, yeah, let's do it, yeah. And they would all kind of agree to it. And Strand would look a little unsure, but he would have to act the part. And he would be like, oh, yeah, yes, of course. And Proctor John would say, good meeting, people. We will go over this tomorrow morning before we make the attack plan. Until then, have a good rest of your day. And then all the Proctors would split up and go their separate ways and enjoy the rest of their day, just like Proctor John asked them to do. And then he would pull Strand to the side and he would say, look, not to call you out or anything, but Asher has brought me some minor concerns of his that he's had. And Victor in a panicked voice would say, I don't even know him. I don't know Asher. What does he know about me? And Proctor John would say, look, calm down. I get it. You're adjusting to something new. But Victor, this is round 2. Third time's a charm. And third time will not happen. You fail me again, and I'll put a bullet in your head. Are we clear on that? Are we clear on that, Victor? And Victor would say, yes, absolutely, Proctor. We absolutely are clear. And he would say, now get out of here and prove to me your loyalty. And Victor and Proctor John would both go their separate ways. We then see Morgan and he goes into this house and we notice that he's kind of looking around and we see that this must be where Grace used to live before. And we see that through the pictures and through some of the stuff going around in the house. Now, he would radio Alicia and he would ask her how she's doing and she would say that she's done killing most of the dead. There's just a few left and then she's going to meet back up with Morgan because where she went, there's nothing there. There's nothing really there and there's no point of continuing. It looks like it's mostly clear now. So she says, tell me where you are, I'm going to come and I'll find you. And Morgan says, nearby this, subdivision, you can just find it. Just go down this one road and it's on Maple Lake Road. It's easy to find. And she would say, all right, copy that. I'll be there in 10. So then Morgan would continue to be searching the house and there wouldn't really be anything too big in here, but he's basically like just kind of waiting for Alicia to show up. And then he looks outside of the window because he hears something going on outside and he hears and then he sees as he looks out the window, a Proctor showing up to this house and parking his bike. And the Proctor wouldn't know that Morgan is inside the house. So Morgan would start hiding and he would make sure that the Proctor doesn't see him. But then as Morgan is trying to find a place to hide inside this house, the Proctor is approaching the house and he's approaching the front door. As he then knocks on the door, he notices that the door is still partially opened and he would say, what the hell? And then the Proctor starts to enter the house. He walks into the living room and we're just wondering like, oh my God, where the hell did Morgan go? Like, where is he? Is he gonna get caught? What's gonna happen here? The Proctor continues to move. He goes inside of the kitchen. Morgan is also not in there. He's just kind of searching around for, some supplies himself. And he's not, really looking for anything. He's not really thinking anything wrong is going on here. He's just searching the house. And then basically he continues. He walks down this hallway hallway, and it's very eerie because you're wondering, like, where the hell is Morgan? Like, this Proctor's just walking all over this house, and Morgan is nowhere to be seen. He then walks into the basement of this house, and he starts to slowly walk down the stairs. We can see that this basement is, like, kind of just very, like, old and dingy and stuff like that. And he walks down and he's searching this like dark basement, and still no sign of Morgan, and we're still wondering, like, where did Morgan go? Like, where did he manage to hide? And as the Proctor starts to search the basement, he then continues to walk. He kind of finds a few random things, and he's just kind of like, you know, walking around. And then out of nowhere, Morgan jumps him, and then it starts to become a fight. He then headbutts Morgan. Morgan goes down, and then he stands back up and aims the staff towards him with the spike at the end. And the man would say, "Who in the fuck are you?" And Morgan would say, "Your worst nightmare." And then he would start hitting him with the staff. He would be trying to stab him, but this man actually picks Morgan up and slams him on the ground. Morgan is down on the ground, and then this guy starts beating Morgan up, ground and pounding back and forth, and Morgan cannot do anything but just, you know, take it. And Morgan continues to get punched in the face over and over and over again. We see Morgan's nose is bleeding, his face is starting to get messed up. This guy is starting to badly beat Morgan up, and then out of nowhere, the guy gets shot in the throat, and Morgan's like, what the hell? And you see Alicia. She makes it down the stairs of this basement, and she would say, "Are you okay?" And Morgan would say, I think so. And he would spit some blood out, and Alicia would say, "No, you're not. Come on, are you all right?" And Morgan would say, look, I'm fine. And she would say, all right, sorry. I heard fighting. I didn't know if that was you or not. And Morgan would say, "Oh, thank you for the help." And Alicia would say, "He was a tough bastard, wasn't he?" And Morgan would say, "Yeah, damn near almost killed me." And Alicia would say, "I told you it was a bad idea to go across the border." And Morgan would say, "I still don't regret it one bit. We had to see what we had to see." And then as Morgan and Alicia climb up the stairs and get out of the basement, we focus on this dead man, this dead Proctor, and we see he is very much dead, and we see the blood pouring out of his head from when Alicia shot him. Now, John and the others would have gone to the top floor, and they go right on top of the roof. And basically, we have this awesome shot where all four of them, John, June, Dwight, and Amelia, are looking down, and they just see this, like, field of zombies, like, just surrounding them all. And John and them basically, you know, they talk about basically, should they use, you know, the ammo? Should they maybe just try to, like, run through them and try to get to the car and stuff like that? And John would say, "No, I'm already low on rounds. That wouldn't work." And Dwight would be like, "Well, we have to figure something out." And, you know, Dwight's like, you know, "We got to figure this out. We got to get back to the others. We got to do this. We got to get away from here as soon as we possibly can. The Proctors are after us." And John would say, "Yeah, we do." And John would just kind of like look a little frustrated and kind of take a deep breath. And then he would say, "All right, call me crazy, but I got an idea." And he looks over at this ladder that's on top of the roof, and they're just like what? Like what do you want to do? And John basically has the idea to take this ladder, and they're going to use that in order to maneuver and to get on the other side and try to basically get through this herd. Now, that is what John is going to do, and that is what, you know, his plan ultimately is. And June says that she's going to go with him no matter what. But at this point, bullets are not going to work. So John says, like, if that's not going to work, this is the only other option. It might be reckless, it might be stupid. And he even says that. He even says it's reckless, but what else is there to do? And that is what he's saying here. And basically that is what John and June are going to do, and that is the plan they're going to go with. Is basically they're going to go on this ladder, and they're going to go car to car, and they're going to try to get through this herd and try to figure out a distraction. Meanwhile, Dwight and Amelia also will help from the mall. Then we see John and we see June, and of course the ladder scene, just like in the show. And I wouldn't really change too much here. I do like the small tension as John does, you know, trip once, which I do think is also realistic in a story that, you know, it wouldn't go 100% perfectly, but it is John, so I think one trip makes sense and it's realistic enough, but not trip a million times over either, because it is still John Dory we're talking about here. So I think that makes a lot of sense. As they start to get across, we're wondering, like, oh man, like, there's still a good few of the dead left. Like, are they going to make it across? Are they going to make it through? The ladder's not very, you know, steady anymore, and things are getting very intense. Now, we would have, just like in the original version, John and June that would make it over the ladder and make it past the dead, which I do think is definitely, you know, really, really cool that they make it over it, and John's plan does actually work. But then, as John and June are about to get through it, we see Amelia and Dwight, and basically they go back inside of the mall, and Amelia has this idea. lead the zombies into the mall, let them flood the inside of the mall, and they'll go out the back door, and then they'll come back around, and the dead will be flooding inside of the mall. So then they can lock the doors and keep this zombie herd inside the mall, and then they can go. So that is exactly what Dwight and Amelia do. They start making noise, and then they start leading some of the dead inside of the mall, and basically John and June are able to get off the cars, and basically as Amelia and Dwight lead the dead inside of the mall, John and June, once they're all inside, John and June shut the door of the mall, and basically they lock it, and of course they put like that one pipe, you know, to kind of keep the door shut. And then Amelia and Dwight would lead the zombies through, and Amelia would say like, okay, we did it. And then Dwight and Amelia would get out, and basically they would go and exit the back door of the mall, and they would also close that. And now the zombie herd has now been defeated in a way, and they are all locked up inside of the mall. And now Amelia, Dwight, John, and June are back, and they are all going to be all right. And then Dwight and Amelia would come around on the other side of the mall, and they would basically say like, all right, like we're good now. And John would say, man, that was some ugly mustard. And Dwight would be like, yeah, well, we dealt with it. And Amelia would say we should probably get back to the truck stop and meet Morgan and the others. And John and June both agree, and Dwight, Amelia, John, and June would get in the vehicle, finish packing up the supplies that they had, and they would drive off. Now, we would get to see Alicia and Morgan, and they would be walking, and basically we would get to see on the radio John, who would say to Morgan, we're back at the truck stop now, Morgan. We're all safe and sound. And Morgan would say, all right, we're going to be there soon. We're just checking out the rest of this, and then we'll be back. And then John's like, copy that, my friend. And you would have John and them that are back at the truck stop now. They're unloading all of the supplies. And Morgan and Alicia would hear that over the walkie-talkie. And Morgan and Alicia would actually kind of smile at each other. And Morgan would say, it's going to be all right. These Proctors are going to be dead soon, and we will get our lives back on track. And Alicia says, I sure hope we can. And Morgan would say, once we kill the Proctors, things will work out. And then Alicia and Morgan would be smiling, and it's a really nice moment. But then, out of nowhere, Morgan and Alicia would hear something, and they would both get down on the ground, and you would be wondering, what the hell is going on? Out of nowhere, you see a darn helicopter flying in the sky, and the helicopter is appearing to be leaving, and we're wondering, where in the hell did that come from? Morgan and Alicia would look at each other, and Morgan would say, who the hell is that? And Alicia would say, whoever they are, they're looking for something. And Morgan and Alicia would look at each other, and we would focus on this helicopter that has the 3 rings on it, and we noticed that it's the CRM helicopter that is the same from The Walking Dead. Morgan and Alicia would look at each other very freaked out, and we see the CRM helicopter flying off, and we're wondering, what the hell is this? So that was Fear the Walking Dead Rewrites, Season 4, Episode 14, Nothing Else to Lose. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This one obviously had a huge ending with the CRM being, of course, involved, and we now know that is the group that, of course, took Althea, so we'll have to see when we cut back with that character. However, we do know now that the CRM are nearby, and we'll have to see what that means for Morgan and the others. However, Strand's life is definitely hanging in the balance because, you know, Proctor John doesn't really totally trust Strand yet, and we kind of get that impression. And so does Asher. Asher doesn't also really trust Strand all that much, and Strand is definitely in a very tough predicament right now. As well as Grace, we do know that the power plant is going to be melting down, so that's going to be an extra added, you know, piece of, you know, conflict that they're going to have to deal with when that thing melts down. How is that going to go for Morgan and the others, and what is this all going to mean? And we do know that the Proctors are planning an attack, so we'll have to see where that all leads to, and that is basically that. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and stay tuned because coming up next is Fear the Walking Dead Rewrites, Season 4, Episode 15, Civic Republic Military. Thanks for watching.
Anybody out there?